Hi everyone! So today I want to teach you how to make these abstract pieces, and I had so much fun creating them. So over a period of time, I think it sort of predominantly started with this piece, which is just gorgeous bright colors with turquoise and yellows and greens and even a little bit of orange, which I had to be quite careful with because with turquoise it's going to create mud. So I had to watch it where I applied. And then this is another one, but I don't like the colors together. I think too much going on for me here, either yellows and pinks or yellows and purples, but not the three together. So but that's something, you know, depends obviously what you prefer. But there are some really lovely areas here, like for example the effects that I could achieve. But my most favorite one is this one, which is sort of like more of a mixed media. I used a bunch of things on this. So I started off with watercolor, then proceeded to the gold leaf, and then later on I've done some splashes with Heidi Swapp Color Shine. So one of those basically. And what else have I done here? And I used some Polychromos pencils. I think the indigo, just to go around some of the areas, just to create like shadow effects, which are very kind of subtle and blended out. So I didn't want it to be a harsh line, like a defined line there. But it does work really, really pretty. So also I was interested whether the color shine would work on the gold flakes, because, you know, I didn't know whether the texture would sort of sustain the color in there, but it does. So it doesn't come off or anything like that. It does stay. Okay, so I'm going to use my last page from this aquarelle block. This was my first one, and surely I finished it really quickly. So I'm just going to remove it. Okay, so I had to go grab the Ranger craft mat because this process is quite messy, and I have a white desk mat. So whenever splashes are involved, you have to protect your desk, unless you don't care or like you like that sort of look. So I will leave the links below. If you're interested, you can have a look. Okay, so where is my paper? I'm going to cut it right in half. Okay, so the important part of this is choosing the colors, because like I said, go for the colors first of all that will work for you, like your favorite color compositions. If you like bright and clashy colors, go for that, but just keep in mind what colors are complementary and which are not, so you don't create any matte. And I think today I feel like doing these. So the Daniel Smith Daniel Smith Ultramarine Turquoise, possibly a little bit of, now this looks quite nice, Daniel Smith Prussian Green, and the Daniel Smith Nickel Azu Yellow, I think, just in a few spots. So I think that would be quite nice. It's quite useful to have these little swatch cards of your palette, so you can quickly kind of put the colors next to each other and see what works, what doesn't. So I'm going to do wet on wet, and get this color going. So it's a very beautiful color. So hopefully you can see how super bright it is. And then in some areas I'm also going to do dry, wet on dry. So that means I'm going to have a defined line in certain areas, like here. And then I just want some dry brushing as well. And a little bit of mess, creative mess. So I think that's quite nice. I'm going to darken this color in certain areas just to create more interest. I'm not going to go into dry brushed parts, because that's not going to flow. We're looking for a flowing kind of color. So looking at the screen, something needs to be happening over here for me. I think it's a little bit better. Okay, so now I'm going to go, while the watercolor is still wet, I'm going to go into that Prussian green, which is in this palette. So it's a very dark color, but it's very pretty. So I'm just going to go on top of the wet and dry, because we're doing kind of glazes here and there. So I think for me personally, that's probably enough of the color. And then I'm going to go into that nickel acer yellow, and I'm going to be very cautious about it because I'm not sure whether it will be too much. So I'm just going to dab it in certain areas. Wow, that's interesting. So it's quite powerful. As you can see, it's just kind of spreading everything else away and out of its direction. Wow, look at that. That is gorgeous. So I'm going to repeat that same process in a couple more places. That's beautiful combo. Love it. And as you build it up, remember that the water reduces and it will start spreading less. So when you first do the spread, it will spread in such a way that there will be hardly any pigment left. It'll be quite pale yellow after a while. So if you want to build that yellow up, just keep on building it on top. I think I'll put a little one just here. And I'm going to do a little bit of glazing with this color as well. So that is pretty beautiful and quite powerful and very, very strong. So at this point, I'm going to quickly get my heat tool and dry it off, but also notice how if there will be any puddles left, I will use a tissue to dab it off and have a look what it's going to look like. Okay, so wherever there were puddles, I kind of tapped the page like that, and then I achieved this nice kind of drop effect, which I really like. So I'm going to let it dry rather than lifting it because it has nice color to it. But the rest of the bits I have used the tissue, as I said, and you can see that's a lovely effect there. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix up two colors. So I'm going to mix up that turquoise that I have used, ultramarine turquoise. I will put the colors below into the links as well. And to do splashes, basically all you need to do is to make sure you have plenty of pigment and water. So I'm loading it and then going into, that's the best way of creating these splashes, I find. And then the more water you add, the lighter the splashes become as well. So that's another variety of playing with the color. And also a couple of the dark ones as well. So which one was it? One from this palette. So that's the Prussian green, also by Daniel Smith. So I'm going to load the pigment over here. And it is pretty strong, so I'm just going to do the same. And in some cases they're going to overlap, and I quite like that. So I'm going to leave it at that. So I just wanted a couple of them. You will truly see the color once they're fully dry, because at the moment it's hard to see that. Right, so what I'm going to do is at this point I'm going to dab off that little bit now, because it has dried enough for me to maintain that darkness. At the same time I do want to lift it a little bit so it looks quite pretty like this. Oop, there we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dry the droplets as well. So the next step is going to be, as you can see, I have dried the splashes and they look a lot lighter now. So they look lighter because in fact I used a tissue to remove the puddle, and then obviously that also removes not just the water but the pigment as well. So that's how I ended up with a lot lighter kind of wash. Sometimes you need to wait, like I did here, to remove the excess, because if you want darkness, that is. So what I thought I'll do, I'll move on to my Heidi Swapp color shines. Great way I found to use them is for splashes. And for a dark color, I have this navy, which is the darkest color I have. So it's a pretty navy color with shimmer settled here at the bottom, as you can see. And the other one is Citron, which is lovely. And I thought it would look really nice in this composition, just to kind of lift it, give it a little bit of, like here, for example, it's the turquoise that's doing it, a little color that just lifts the whole thing. And here it will be this color. So I'm going to give it a good little shake. Okay, so I had to shake up this one quite for a while because I haven't used it in a very long time. But if you use them sort of, you know, once a week or so, you won't need to shake it that strongly. So I'm just going to take this color and just do the splatters. That's exactly what I was looking for. Couple here. Oh, they're going on to this one as well. Okay, and now I'm going to do the dark, or maybe actually I'll dry this first and then do the dark so they don't blend much. But have a look how pretty it looks. It works really well with these colors. All right, so now that they're nice and dry, you can see the shimmers coming through, hopefully. There you go, you can see those little ones. Same thing here. If the bubble of the, or the like a little puddle of the paint is too big, make sure you remove it with a piece of tissue, but don't dab it because that will squash it. Just use a little corner and kind of make it sort of be sucked up by the fibers of the tissue, and that way you won't end up with anything sticky. So these are not sticking or transferring, but if you would do the bubble, if you would leave it and just keep on going, it would be sticky. And like I said, you do have to set the Heidi Shine, not Heidi Shine, Heidi Swapp color shine sprays, you have to set them with the heat tool. Okay, finally a couple of dark ones, and I don't want too much, but as you can see, that immediately lifted the whole thing up. So I'm going to go ahead, dry it, and then stop and do the same thing with picking up the excess paint. All right, so enough splatters for now. I will move on to the gold leaf. However, I might at the end come on and do some more splatters, because you can see here I've done the splatters on top of the gold leaf, and I quite like the look because it just makes the gold from underneath the color shine kind of go through, and it kind of looks really pretty. So okay, so to do that, I'm just going to carefully grab my remaining gold leaf. I want to finish it off because it's just flying everywhere. These naughty little flakes. So for that, I'm going to use a brush that I am not too fussed about. So this is a Faber-Castell kind of plasticky brush that came in with the what was it, the gelatos set. So I don't really care about it much. So I'm going to open this bottle, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get some of this liquid and put it on this mat right here, and that should be plenty. You don't need much at all, but the reason I'm doing it is because if I'm going to touch watercolor, it obviously is going to reactivate it. And then if I'm going to go back, I don't know if it's going to make the solution go off or anything like that. So I'll just stay away from that. So I have this big yellow area right here, which I want to put a bit of gold leaf. So I'm kind of thinking how I want this to look. And at the moment, I think sort of looks almost like a flower to me, so I'm going to mimic that in a way. and that's where the solution is going to go. I also want a little bit of it into here and a bit into here. I think for now that's it, and then later I will wash it off, but I also need it now to pick up the gold leaf. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just picking up the gold leaf, as you see. Don't need any tweezers for it or anything like that. And just set it without waiting. It says on the bottle you should wait 15 minutes, but I'm sorry, I just don't have the patience. And it does seem to work, because I've done it like that on the other one. I'm just going to press it on. If anything, it just creates even more texture, I find. So I have nothing against that. So some of them I'm just overlapping because excess will come off anyway. And then let's have a look. If the parts are too big, generally you can take it off like so and stick it elsewhere. And I quite like that sort of ripped effect. I don't want the edges to be too perfect, but I'll show you what to do for that. So you just kind of go like that. Once you added it, then go with your brush all directions and just brush it on. Sometimes you need to press it, and sometimes you need to just brush it on. Okay, then we have the last one here, which is a bit too big, so I'm just going to tear that one. And let's see. I'm trying to think whether I have added it everywhere. Yeah, I think that should be enough. I'll try, see if I need it here anywhere. So at this point I'm just going to be a bit messy, and I'm just going to take whatever I have excess and just push it into random places. And now I'm going to distress it by really rubbing quite hard at it with my brush. That's now starting to get a little bit harder, so that's perfect. What I quite fancy is those little tiny bits of gold leaf that just stick randomly to your project. But they have to be flat. It shouldn't be one of those curled up ones. So I'll show you in a minute in a close-up. Okay, let me quickly go wash this brush and come back. But look how beautiful it already looks. Right, so I had to do a couple of things off camera because my battery started dying. But I will explain to you what I have done. So basically, I have gone ahead and kind of used first of all, used the heat tool to set the gold foil. I wouldn't recommend blasting too much on it, but just a little bit. I find that sets that liquid and kind of dries it faster. And once I've done that, I waited for the paper to cool down, and I just used a palette knife and ever so slightly, without trying to scratch the paper or the gold foil or the leaf, I kind of went all over the edges and checked if any bits were still loose, and whether that way I could lift them and create a bit more texture and break it up a little bit, which is what I find looks the best when it comes to gold foil, rather than sort of a block of it. So once I've done that, I also went back with the navy and done these couple of big splashes right here. I felt like I wanted some darker, bigger splashes over here in this area, which kind of works nicely because it brings it all together. Right, so enough with splashes. The final thing that we need to do is grab some pencils and start bringing out a few things. Now I've got two blues. So this is the light cobalt turquoise, and this is a cobalt green and dark chrome yellow. You can help yourself with the color wheel to establish what you like. So I would take one of the pencils, starting with the lightest one, and just kind of go around without burnishing the paper too much, but just going around right the edges of the gold leaf. And let me zoom in for you so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. So that makes it stand out from the background and connects it back to that turquoise that we have going on here, as you can see. So then just like that, nothing else. Very lightly touching, because even though it's very lightly, it does make a difference. And I wouldn't go all around every single bit, but just some areas more than others. So I would do that, like I said, first with the lightest color. And then I would take the darker one, the cobalt green, and do the same thing, but less. So just in certain little nooks and crannies, like this corner right here, I would do that on. And again, just picking out certain areas where I think it would be most suited. And obviously on the yellow it will stand out more because it's darker than yellow. So this looks quite good. And now what I would do, if I feel that there needs to be some blending, by the way, I would just kind of take it out a little bit more, like so. Now I would take this orange, and basically there are these couple very small gold pieces. I want to highlight them by using this pencil, this orange, and it really looks quite neat. So just, if the pieces are way too small, then just do it on one side, like that. It only needs a couple. You don't need to do too much of it. So hopefully you can see that works really beautifully. And I would try to repeat that somewhere else. Maybe just here. Sometimes there is a little bit of the residue of that liquid, and the pencil doesn't want to draw on it because it sort of feels quite glossy and burnished. But pick out those areas that you can do it on. Okay, so this is pretty much it. I wouldn't want to add anything else to it. Let me zoom out. And yeah. So it was super fun, and it's really, really pretty. I'll try to take some images for you so you can see it up close as well. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.